the opening of the road between East and West Sunrise Highway. This is another one of those lies. And you know, it's funny, they have this story they tell about the frog. And if you take a frog and you put him in a glass of hot water, he has a sense to jump out. He jumps right out. He doesn't want to be in that hot water. He knows that hot water is not good for him and it will kill him. But this happens to be the truth. If you put him in a pot of cool water and turn the temperature up slowly, he will stay there and he'll keep adjusting. Well, it's warm, but not so bad, not so bad. Okay, it's warm, but... And eventually he will boil to death. Because you give him the pain, not all at once, but slowly. And that's the story of this country. That's the story of what we're suffering in this island. And so I want to talk about the East-West Sunrise Highway, because the lie that we've been told is that it doesn't matter. It's just a road. People could go around. And the fact that the bazaar died right after we closed it is just because of a hurricane and the hotels. It has nothing to do with the road. Simple question. If that is so, why is it that people who are paying so much to be in Port Lukaya are not being afforded the opportunity to be here with the road open? Why? Why is it that we have straw vendors suffering down in Port Lukaya, all sorts of indignities, taxi drivers having their benches that they sit on taken away, Bahamians being told you can come here and not there, in our city, in our country? Why is it that we're going through that when we have an alternative? And if you don't believe the road makes a difference, why not open it? The answer happens to be complicated, but I put it in this way. There is no doubt of this. Port Lukaya benefits from this being closed. Some other people might put it in a different way, to say this was closed to build a Port Lukaya. I have my views on that, but I'll leave you to form your own views on that. But one thing is clear, Port Lukaya benefits from this being closed. In any other city, amongst any other people, we understand that competition is a good thing. We don't want monopolies. We don't want one man or one woman or one company owning everything and we have to go on our knees and beg for something. Why not have competition with Port Lukaya? Why not give our people the ability not to have to pay those incredible rents up there just to try and make a living? Why not make it so that Bahamians really can have a place? This is what the bazaar is. Before I talk about the East-West Sunrise Highway, I just want you to see. I want you to open your minds and see. This is a little city in a city. This is New Orleans. This is Las Vegas. This is New York. This is the Fun City. And these alleys you see are actually roads. If a foreigner came here and said, we're going to open the Chinese restaurant and build a New Orleans nightclub and have a jazz club over there and a little Jamaican club over there, and all through you come to this space at nights and you cannot finish walking through it. You cannot finish enjoying yourself here. We would celebrate that. And by the way, that is what it used to be. That is what it used to be. The East-West Sunrise Highway was closed in 2002 to allow Driftwood, and this was the excuse they used, to build a man-made beach connecting the two hotels. And to do that, forget that there was land everywhere else for that, but to do that, they say they had to close the road. That was the excuse. And so now you have tourists getting on tour buses at the harbor and not driving through the bazaar, but going around it and heading way down the road to Port Lukaya when they could be here. It had the effect of diverting tourism away from here. Not just as a location, you know, but as a Bahamian-owned location. These shops are owned by individuals, not by one company. All of these are owned by separate individuals. And so separate individuals have the ability to prosper if we open it. And so how can you possibly open East-West Sunrise Highway? The Port Authority, I keep saying to everyone, and this is law, it's just a company incorporated like any other company. You could go to Companies Act the registry tomorrow and they'll show you it's just a company like any other company. And so having sold the road, it has no power to get it back. None. None. The only person, the only entity in the country that can do that is the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And we have a statute from the early 1900s that allows the government to do just that. It's called the Acquisition of Lands Act. And it's a very important statute. What it says is that if the government needs land anywhere for a public purpose, it just buys it from you and you cannot say no to the sale. You can debate what the purchase price is, but you cannot say no to the sale. And if the government offers you a sum and you don't want it, the government just sends that over to the Attorney General to sort out and takes the land. That is what happened in Nassau with the road building project. That is how you were able to build those highways through all those communities. The government acquired land, paid for it, acquired it. The government is the only entity to reacquire that road, and the failure to reopen that road is the government's failure, not the Port Authority. It's the government's failure. And the promise to reopen that road was the government's promise. Reopen the road. Very simple. A couple other promises were made, that we would reduce departure tax in the city of Freeport, at the harbor and at the airport by 50%. Almost 4 years later, we've not done it. We promised to do it. It was for a purpose. You know, right now, the government pays Hutchison Whampoa, the big owner of the container port, through their management at the casino, $15 million a year to run the casino. They subsidize the casino by $15 million a year. What are we subsidizing Bahamians by? What are we contributing to making sure Bahamians are able to move ahead? And there was a promise on that we would put government money into Bahamian businesses to revitalize locations like this, to revitalize nightclubs, entertainment centers, music festival centers, restaurants. And again, we sit back quietly when the government gives that money to foreigners. We ought to feel that there's a problem when the government does that and is not willing to spend that money with Bahamian business people. Imagine you have a successful nightclub somewhere in Freeport. What is wrong with coming and saying, listen, we want you to open another one here? And we're not going to subsidize you with 15 million. We're going to give you 200,000 or 300,000. That's enough to start, and that's employment. And you do that with about 10 or 15 entities here. Now you're only up to a little over 3-4 million. But you've changed the life of the city. But we could spend 9 million on a Junkanoo carnival that has nothing to do with Bahamian culture. We can do that. We could spend 200 and something million on boats for the Defense Force. No problem. We could spend 70 million on BAMSI and another 200 million on Bahamas Air, and we could spend money everywhere except on Bahamians. Now that may sound like a complaint. What that is just saying open your mind. That is not normal. That should not be acceptable. That is not something that you should be comfortable with. And so I say it's time to fulfill those promises and invest in Bahamians. Reopen the road. Obviously, once I'm in a position to influence that, I'm going to reopen that road. That has to be reopened for the city of Freeport. That has to be. I'm intentionally tuning down the whole political talk because I want to just stay as a town meeting for now, but I'm making it very clear. Certain things have to change. Port Authority can no longer be a government in Freeport. That needs to be in Bahamian hands. That road needs to be reopened. This bazaar needs Bahamian business people who are successful in business to be given, not loaned, given government money to restart their businesses. We have 2 Bahamian airlines. 2. At least 1, but on paper 2. That have the capacity to drive airlift to this island. Have the capacity. We have the entertainment and the people here. But we will spend the money on all sorts of other stuff, but not on Bahamians. All of that has to change. We have to get back to the mindset we had when we started this independence movement for this country, of building a country where Bahamians are truly first, not just in word, and not just your friends, and then when you get voted out, their friends, but Bahamians. And so I am fully committed, firmly committed to reopening this road. This is the heart of the city of Freeport, and people who talk about putting a bulldozer on this have very, very limited foresight. This is a gold mine. This is a mecca. This is an opportunity waiting to be revitalized. Imagine the government steps in here and says to the owners, listen, we'll buy you out if you want to sell. But if you don't want to sell, stay, and we will help you to revitalize. And if you want to sell, we'll buy you out not to be the government in here, but to sell it to another Bahamian. Government shouldn't be in business. Government should be small. Bahamians should be in business. That's where we're heading. That's the way we're going to go to help to revitalize this island. So let me move on to mortgage relief, because I have two others that are big ones to cover. And again, talking about the mindset of what we believe and who we are. I started talking about mortgage relief in February of 2012. And it took a little while for others to catch on to it, but others did, and a commitment was made, and elections happened, and promises were made, and nothing happened. For 3 years, I sat in Parliament saying, what about the mortgage relief? I sat in Parliament saying, listen, we know how to do this. Other countries have done this. Here's what's going on. So you know what we mean when we say mortgage relief. Here's what's going on. Right now, if you buy a house and you have to go to a bank or an insurance company or wherever for a loan, when you get that loan, if you fall behind, the people you borrow the money from, just sell the house. Full stop. No question of whether it's right to sell this house, no question of whether it's a good idea, whether you've paid a lot, whether it's equitable. They simply sell the house. And if you have a 20-year mortgage, you could be paying for 19 years and 51 weeks. And if you fall behind, they can sell that house. You don't get any money back, and your house is gone. That's what the law is now. That's a law from 1909. That's still on our books. 1909. That's the kind of law we're living under. Before anyone thought about rights for people, where business people could do whatever they wish. That's the law we're living under. The law in other countries are different. England approaches it a much different way. The Americans approach it a different way. Americans are even more extreme. They just write off your debt. But the English approach it in a moderate way, where they say, listen, today, if a bank sells your house and you just get up and voluntarily leave, that's the end of it. Your house is gone, you lost all your money. If you stench and say, I'm not leaving, the banks cannot put you out. They'll send some policemen, pay them $50 to come and threaten you, but they cannot get you out. The only way to get you out is to go to court and to get the court to issue what they call an order for possession. That's today. And when you go to the court, all the court can say to you, my brother, all I can do is give you like a month to pay off everything else you owe. Not the payments you missed, the whole rest of the loan. That's what the court says. That's the only power they have. In England, they switch it. They said, listen, you cannot sell a dwelling house, a home, without the permission of the court. Full stop. Not your condo, not your car, not your business. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about homes. You cannot sell a home without the permission of the court. And the reason that law was made, from 1970, that law was sitting there. And we've just looked at it and we've refused to enact it. The reason that law was made is because when you go to the court, say you have a 20-year mortgage, you've been paying for 2 years. I'm sorry, they are going to sell your house, and that's going to be the end of that. But supposing you were paying for 5, 7, 8 years, you've built up equity. You've been paying, you have some money invested in that house. And the courts then have the right to say, no, we're going to change this mortgage. We are going to extend the mortgage period. Meaning it used to be a 20-year mortgage, you paid off 8 years, you only had 12 years left. The court will say, listen, we're going to add another 5 years onto this. So the banks will make more money, but we're going to reduce your monthly payment so that you can get a payment you can afford. And that's something people want. The banks don't lose any money on that. The banks make a lot of money on that. But it's fair. And here's the scam that some banks are engaged in. We hear these words like amortization. You go to the bank and you get a loan, they say we're going to give you an amortized payment, and no one knows what that means. What that means is they take the full amount of your loan and the interest on it and calculate it over the full life of the loan, but all the interest is paid by half of the loan. So you get a 20-year mortgage, you should be paying interest for 20 years, but that's not how they do it. They pile all the interest up front on the loan. So in the first 10 years, all you're paying is interest. That's all you're paying. And that's why if you go to the bank for the first 10 years on a 20-year mortgage, you ask them what I owe, it's just basically what you borrowed. And that's why, again, some unscrupulous banks, they come to you and they say, throughout your probably 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th year, 8th year, they come to you with all sorts of offers. You want a credit card? You want a car? You want a mortgage? Some furniture? They keep piling onto the loan because that's still their interest period. And here's the scam. At 10 years in, unscrupulous banks really don't want you as a customer anymore, because they are not making any money off you anymore. Everything you're paying is just the money you owe them. It's not profit anymore. The profit is obtained in the half-life of the mortgage. And that's why a lot of banks will not do anything to help you if you fall into problems in the second half of your mortgage. Because what they really want to do, if you think about it, you were paying for 10 years on a 20-year mortgage, 10 years finished, they want to sell your house and get someone else to buy it who will pay them 10 years on a 20-year mortgage, so interest starts again. To help you doesn't get them any more profits. To sell your house gets them profits. And that is why you need that law. And that's why other countries do it. It's unfair to put people in a position where small persons, ordinary people who are only behind their mortgage because they're having a financial problem, are now put to the expense of trying to find money to pay for a lawyer, to go to court, to argue a case that they cannot win. And so the mortgage relief bill, in simple terms, is going to, one, it's actually called the Conveyancing Law Property Amendment Bill, but mortgage relief bill. It will, one, prohibit sale of dwelling houses only, not your car or anything else. That can get sold. We're only protecting homes, without permission of the court. And when you go to the court will have the discretion to look at the loan and see whether the loan can be saved by extending the period, giving the bank more interest, giving you more time, and lowering your monthly payments. At the same time, the courts will also have the power to look in that mortgage and see if the bank had any other unfair terms in it. Like the banks invent these charges these days. You go to the bank, you want to cash a check, it's $5, it used to be nothing. Then it changes from $5 to $10 just because they said so. Similarly, the banks are putting provisions in these contracts that are just unfair. It will give the court the opportunity to look at them and to take them out. And here is what has happened in other countries where this is passed. No one goes to court, because the banks know when they go to court what the judge will do. And so when you fall behind, why waste time on that? The bank simply call you and say, let's work this out. Let's extend your mortgage and reduce your monthly payment. And Parliament passes a law to say you can do that without extra stamp duty, without extra legal fees, without extra anything. That's where we're heading. And so the first part of that process is the mortgage relief bill. I have a couple people in Parliament who've said they're going to second it. And to talk about that very quickly, when you go to Parliament as an MP, any of us could bring bills to the House, but you need one other person to second it. Once the person seconds it, then everyone has to vote on it. And so the thought was, oh, no one will second the bill. And I've said to my colleagues, I said, let me see you stand in the House or sit in the House and say to the Bahamian people, you will not even raise your voice to say, I second it. So the bill will be seconded. There are a lot of people who have committed to seconding it. And once it's seconded, it will then move on an agenda and move to a vote, and we will bring this law into effect.